Henry, thank you. Mayor, Council, appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and present how Hotel Carmichael is doing. Lori and I have divided this up with me sort of commenting on some of the strategic planning and strategic moves and strategic opportunities. And then she, as the asset manager of this property, can go into the numbers. So hopefully we will finish with everything you ever wanted to know and weren't afraid to ask. So we'll start with that. As was mentioned by Henry, I'm president of Pedcor Companies. Classically, our core business is affordable housing throughout the country. But starting a little over 20 years ago with some of you and your predecessors, we started working with the city on public-private partnerships. In preparation for this meeting, I thought I'd go count the number of buildings that we have done. In my mind, I came out with 25, but when I drove by them to see them all this weekend, I actually realized it was over 40. So we've been doing this now for about 20 years with the city in public-private partnerships, so that's about 2 a year. Whether we'll be able to continue that or not, we'll see. But certainly I think between the Art and Design District, Carmel City Center, and Pedcor Square is where you'll see these 40-some buildings. One of them is a unique one, such as the Tarkington Theater. In that regard, we did the design and we did the construction, but the public sector owns it because it didn't make sense for the private sector to be involved. Except for the Hotel Carmichael, with respect to the rest of them, again, almost 40 buildings, the city was involved in TIF. TIF is still involved in many of these buildings as far as being paid off, but of course, remember when the TIF bond is paid off, all of that tax revenue goes to you and the county and others, and it's quite substantial and it grows every year. But one of them was unique, and that was the Hotel Carmichael. Henry makes a comment that was presented to you in 2017. I can tell you the idea for it came some 10 years prior to that with, again, your predecessors, the current mayor when she was a council member, but also the previous mayor. We had discussions. We wanted something iconic. We could have done something a lot less expensive, but it would not have added, we thought, to the economic development opportunities of the city. We thought the location right between the city center and the Palladium was an extraordinary location. I've suggested it's the most valuable parcel in the state of Indiana. And I would add to Henry's comment that where he suggested it might be the best hotel in the county, I would argue it's the best hotel in the state, if not beyond. And that certainly has been our goal. In that regard, then, the hotel is unique, and it is classically a more equal partnership between the city and us. Henry has been an excellent representative. I think has represented the city very well as we have worked through opportunities more than problems, because this has worked. Not that the pandemic happening in March of 20 and our opening in July of 20 didn't create its own challenges. It did. But let me comment how we dealt with that, and also because of Carmel's openness, we're able to deal with it. But let me first comment that the goal of the hotel initially was for executives and professionals who had a day up here in Carmel working and doing their profession or their businesses, keeping them from going to Indianapolis, basically, for their hotel. We wanted to keep them here in Carmel. We think we have accomplished that, and in fact, we think we've actually also caused the opposite to occur, which is people whose businesses are actually, or activities during the day are in Indianapolis, are now coming to the Hotel Carmichael because that is the best location for them. But even more important than those two things, what we're doing is we're actually attracting activities, some that did happen in Indianapolis, but we care about Indianapolis, obviously, and want them to thrive, because together we'll thrive with them. But we've actually attracted activities that didn't previously happen in Indiana at all, by way of conferences, national meetings, and what have you. Unfortunately, and would like to share those, that I can't do and won't do, and I'm sure you understand. But let me tell you, we are bringing in national leaders, people who would be known, whose activities are known and are known well, who come to this community through the Hotel Carmichael, see City Center and see Carmel, and are very impressed. My wife Denise is with me also, and those of you who know both of us know I'm the introvert and she's the extrovert. So while we're sitting at Vivant Restaurant at the hotel and I'm reading my book, trying not to be bothered, she's out visiting with everybody. She approaches the women and says, "Hey, do you know about all the great shops here?" And I one time said to her, I said, "Do you really want to do it? Do you really think they're interested?" She assured me women are interested in that, love the information, but it gives her a chance to talk to these people. And they come from throughout the country, occasionally from throughout the world, but often throughout the country. She's able to interact with them and get the feedback that the management of the hotel and I get through statistics and numbers. Yes, people love this hotel, they love City Center, and they love Carmel. And this introduction that the Hotel Carmichael has enabled them to come and visit the city through is a great avenue and a great way to expose us to wonderful opportunities, we think, in the future. Many of these people come back year after year, so the hotel is not only getting repeat business, but it gets referrals from these people. And there really then is a growth opportunity, which I'd like to mention at the end of my comments. We did then, at the beginning, in the pandemic, do well, and you'll see some of the numbers that Lori will share, and you'll see our occupancy compared to others. In the first year of the pandemic, basically the first year of the operation of the hotel, people could not get married and have a celebration in Marion County, but they could in Carmel. And so we played to that and had, I remember one weekend my wife and I were there and we counted 7 brides basically coming in and out of the hotel. And we're still getting that business obviously on weekends, even though Marion County is trying to compete with us, although I think we're doing quite well in that regard. So there's a lot of things that have happened both on weekends as far as family events and events like weddings. There's a lot of business events that happen during the week, and we've been very fortunate for all of that. Some of the things I want to mention, we are very, and I think Henry has commented a little bit, and you'll see it in the numbers that Lori will share, from the original projections we had from 2017, even notwithstanding the pandemic, we have actually exceeded all of those projections. And we're proud of that, obviously, and that's a good thing for both us and the city. We are concerned also, not concerned, we are very much wanting to make sure that the asset that you and we both own basically is preserved going forward in the future. So as part of the salting away, not as an accounting matter, but we actually set aside these dollars in a replacement reserve. It totals about $500,000 a year. Lori tells me we have about $1 million in reserves now. We're getting ready to add $500,000 to it, but I want you to know we also spend it, okay? I've always hated that when a lender holds back replacement reserves and won't let them out. That's crazy because you want them invested back in the property. And so in this coming year, we would anticipate $500,000 actually being reinvested in the hotel to make sure that we keep it up to the quality that we all want. I do want to comment one thing about interest rates because I had a play in this, and I guess I'm kind of proud of the result, but I want to accept the responsibility for it too in case anybody comments. We initially had the chance in 2017 of a fixed interest rate at 7% or a adjustable rate, which would be SOFR, which is a short-term rate, plus 225 basis points. We got that from 2 banks, Commerce Bank, who has the first mortgage, and United Fidelity Bank, who has the second mortgage. We're confident that next year when these mortgages come up, or maybe it's the year after, that those banks will be happy in renewing those mortgages, although we can't speak to that, can't speak on their behalf, although on behalf of the second mortgage holder, I can almost speak on its behalf. But I'm quite confident that they're happy with the performance of the hotel and will renew it as we need to going forward. But as I mentioned, we could have got a 7% fixed rate. I know some people think fixed rates are a panacea. I don't. I think particularly when you have a hotel where the income can go up or down depending on how the economy goes, having it relate basically to an adjustable rate mortgage makes a lot more sense than a fixed rate mortgage. And so when we closed on this in 2017, 2018, again, we could have had a 7% fixed rate. We chose an adjustable rate. In the first couple, 3 years, the adjustable rate stayed, I think, at about the 5% range, maybe 6%, clearly below the 7%. During the first 3 years after the pandemic started, we basically were like at about the 2.5% range. So even had our occupancy been lower, our interest rates would have been dramatically lower, even than we anticipated with an adjustable rate, let alone with what a fixed rate is. Currently, our interest rate at SOFR plus 225, you can compute it, it's 5.25 plus 2.25 is about 7.5%. So we're not much over what the fixed rate would have been. The good news, though, is I suspect SOFR is at a high point, at least that's what the Federal Reserve says, we'll see whether they honor it this time, and should be going down. So pretty soon we'll actually again be below the 7%. But I think the adjustable rate financing we have on it is a very good hedge against what is actually happening in the economy, which has some effect on our hotel. Although I will tell you, I, with a great deal of pride, argue to a lot of people that Carmel doesn't follow the normal macroeconomics because we do so well here, and as the hotel has also. This being the case, one of the things I know you've all read or been involved as participants in the evolution of the hotel's financing as far as its costs. I will say I was a part of all of those discussions. I was on the private sector. I leave you guys with the public sector. That's your bailiwick, not mine. But from the private sector point of view, I can tell you that I think everything that was spent there was appropriately spent, was reasonably spent, and resulted in real value for both of us. My interest in it was subordinate to all of those expenditures, so it wasn't as if even if the city spent it, as opposed to Pedcor in many of those cases, that it wasn't an impact on me and on my business. It was. But I thought all of those monies were appropriately spent and resulted in a, I do believe, an iconic hotel, although again, I'm obviously biased. At 122 rooms, a decision was made to have it at that, even though that is at the minimum level you can expect to run a hotel and be efficient. More efficient would be 150 to 200 rooms. We did it at 120 because nobody had ever done a hotel in the area where we put, obviously, the Carmichael. They've always been along US 31. And that's a great place for it, but that wasn't what we were trying to accomplish here in this location between City Center and the Palladium. So in that regard, we were trying to keep the cost down by having a hotel that we thought minimally could support basically the Vivant restaurant, the Adagio bar, and the Feinstein nightclub. Fortunately, all three of them have done well, not just because of hotel guests, but because of the attraction and bringing in many people from not just Carmel, but from way beyond Carmel, particularly for the Feinstein nightclub. We do have the opportunity, because on the Wren, which is the building under construction right next to the hotel, we designed it so that the northern half of it could in fact connect to the hotel. And that is what we think makes sense now. There are 33 apartments there that can make the equivalent of large suites that can be added to the hotel, and to the 122 rooms, there would be an initial 33 that would take it to 155, which we think would make it very efficient. I am not here now and do not anticipate at any point in time coming here or before the Redevelopment Commission asking for $1 of further public investment. Having said that, if you want to invest, I doubt you do, because I know that's not your business, but if you do, I don't want there to be any question that I seize this opportunity for ourselves. We would invite and welcome your investment. We are not expecting it or needing it. We believe the incentive you have helped us create with the existing Hotel Carmichael will enable us to help you and us expand it, making the existing hotel more efficient. Have it at 155 rooms. There are events, conventions, business meetings that the hotel is now turning down that we do not have capacity for. This will add to that capacity and create more business opportunities here in Carmel. So that's basically my presentation. I want to turn it over to Lori, and then after that, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to respond to them. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. I'm going to start. How do I do this? There we go. I'm going to start with occupancy. So originally, Bruce had talked about the October 2017 original pro forma. And so that is, as you look through the hotel, most hotels kind of stabilize at roughly 75 to 77% occupancy. So I've done a little chart, as you can see, and Bruce did noted that we opened the doors in July of 2020 in the middle of a global pandemic. And through the chart, within 3 years, we've outpaced the original pro forma. So the Hotel Carmichael looking through 2020 through 2024. I'm going to focus on 2022. You can see that in 22, we were at 76.4%. Original pro forma was 75%. And if you move down, you're going to see submarket Indy North Loop. That is basically our comp set in the STAR report, which was the standard hotel kind of dynamics. And so that is our group, mainly focusing on the north side of Indianapolis. So we are in 22 already above the Indy North Loop. The market class, upper upscale class, is all the luxury hotels, including the ones in downtown. So you can see even in 22, we were at 76, and the luxury class from downtown that we're also competing with is at 60%. Moving 23, we go up to 80% occupancy, still above the 77, which a hotel operator is considered from a stabilized position. 24, anything I have in the 24 is all projections. These, I'm not providing 24 numbers in any way just because of, we have 2 months under our belt. But the projected to be at 80% again, and obviously the original pro forma had it at 17. That also then kind of rolls into our revenue. So within 18 months of opening, the revenue was 7% above the original 10-year pro forma that we did in 2017. You can see that happened actually in 21. A lot of that was because we took advantage of the weddings and the events, and a lot of people did staycations. And I couldn't go anywhere, but I can come and kind of stay in downtown Carmel and enjoy that versus kind of being stuck in my home through the global pandemic. So 20, we opened in July, so it's a stub year. It's not, kind of that. The original pro forma actually had us opening in 19, so I've slightly adjusted from a year perspective, but that is it. It's just the related of when we opened in the stub year versus when the pro forma had us opening. 21, our total revenue was $10.2 million. That original pro forma was 9.5. So we were already kind of out of the gate at 7% above. 22, you can see that continue growing to 25% above the pro forma. 23, we're at 48, and 24 is projected to be 52. I would like to point out from a standpoint of the total revenue, originally that pro forma that was presented in the environment never, even in the 10 years, never went above about 13.2 million as it escalated through. We currently are 23, we were at $16.4 million in revenue. We are projected at 17.3 for this year. So we are automatically even as all the growth above what we estimated in the pro forma. The revenue in 23 had an increase of about 48% from the original projections. I think that is, as Bruce had commented, all the different components that we're experiencing between the events that we're getting, between a lot of the travel and the conferences. The Adagio Bar, as most probably have gone to see, has gone to something that we never expected it to be. So that is very much a happening place. And then the Feinsteins. So you're getting a lot more of different elements, different components of the hotel adding to that revenue. And I apologize, I have a tendency to go really fast, so if I need to slow down, please let me know. Income statement. So this is just going to be total revenue, some expenses, our total expenses. It'll also show the replacement reserve that we do set aside per the Marriott. Marriott does have an escalator of percentage of total revenue that is expected to be set per their documents, which we do honor and respect. So total revenue, you can see as it is increased into 23, 24, which we've already gone over. Total expenses has also increased through that. I think if we can focus on maybe the net income, so that middle line you can see. We are moving net operating from 1.8 in 21. 22 moved about 1.9. A lot of that is that global pandemic and adjusting to purchasing and cost of goods and things like that. 23, we had a net operating income of $3 million, and we are expected in 24 to have a net income of $3.5 million. So adjusted, I call it adjusted net operating income, which is just the adjustment off the replacement reserve. Like Bruce had said, the replacement reserve is about $1 million right now. We have projected the $500,000 for 24, and we are working and will use that $500,000 throughout the year to be able to replace things, to purchase new things for the rooms, carpet, all that kind of stuff of replacement, but also then adding to, as we need to add some things and equipment that can also be used for that. Debt service. Obviously, Bruce had talked about the interest. So the interest is variable rate, 1 month SOFR plus 225 basis points. The current mortgages actually mature April of 2026. Both the first and second mortgage have the exact terms on them, so they will mature at the same time. We have already, started conversations with our first mortgage lender. They are very pleased with the hotel, and they more than likely will want to kind of continue to be in the hotel, and we will go through that process. For 2021, one of the things I can point out is you can see I've kind of added the total debt service that includes principal and interest. Through 2021, we were still using some of the construction interest reserve that was part of the construction loan. So you had about $280,000 that was able to be pulled out of the existing draw that we had stashed away through the construction interest reserve. So that was not, as the hotel was still operating, we were still able to use those funds, so we weren't pulling operating cash to do that. However, there was about $85,000 that did go into, or not 85, 288 that was part of the operating cash. So what you see in that total debt for 21, that is what did hit our cash account to be able to pay for the debt. Principal payments started in May of 22. So what you see in 21 is also interest only. And then moving to 22, we did start principal payments in May of 22. The debt obviously has increased based on the interest rate, and so you can see it go from 1.3 to the 2.4, and it's estimated at 2.4 again for 24. We assumed we would kind of stay the same on the interest rate just to have a conservative estimate for 24 numbers. I've laid out our debt service coverage ratio for the first, and then also on the second, that is the two combined. The bottom number on your debt service is both the first and the second. So you can see that even from a debt service coverage ratio, which is very much a bank kind of formula and a kind of a bank ticker where they want to see that checked off the box. So you can see that for 23, we were at 1.57 to 1, and on the first mortgage, which is very good. Come on. There we go. Cash flow. So taking all those numbers that we've talked about and then rolling into a cash flow. I think one of the things I do want to point out, especially you can see in 21, because we were still in interest only, because I was still able to use the construction draw reserve, we had an adjusted net income after the replacement reserve of $1.6 million. We did then have debt service payments of the $288. So we had about $1.4 in surplus cash. What we ended up, because of the nature of 21, and we were in that pandemic, that low interest rate at that time was allowed us to be able to kind of build up some surplus cash. So that this allowed us to absorb that higher interest rate, the higher cost of goods that we started to experience as we rolled into 22 and even into 23 and the higher interest rate now. So that kind of all of those market factors together, because we had some of those things built in those lower interest rates at that time, it gave us a nice kind of nest egg to be able to handle all those market factors that we were kind of getting to experience through as we were coming out of the global pandemic. So in 22, you can see the cash flow drop down to 343. A lot is that is the increase of the debt service payments as we start to see the interest rate rise. In 23, our debt is 2.4, so we did have the cash flow of 180. We are protected because of the higher interest rates, because we are starting to see some savings within the expenses to have a projected cash flow of about $600,000. I will say, looking at both January and February, we are currently about $90,000 ahead of budget already. So that is a good sign as we move. And January and February are usually the harder periods for hotels in their natural kind of cycle. Going back. And just a few accolades of how well the hotel has done. This is one of those things that kind of speaks back to Bruce and Henry and the fact of we have done a lot of, being nominated for Best Hotel and things like that. And this hotel and these accolades help drive that revenue, help drive people to the hotel, and really has made it something very successful. So that is all I have.
How many total autographs do they know when you say number 2 and number 14?
I actually looked. Currently in the world is 307 autograph hotels.
Could you repeat the question?
Sorry, he asked how many autographs. So you will see in some of the accolades I've said Marriott autograph hotels versus Marriott all brands. The autograph is that kind of one of their higher end. In their world currently, there's 307 current autographed hotels. I believe in North America, there's 155.